So is it racist to not want to date certain races? This is the topic of the video today. It's a very interesting topic. If you're new here, we own a international matchmaking company that helps guys from the West meet, date, and form long-term relationships, hopefully leading into marriage, with women from Eastern Europe, which is a completely different culture and mindset from Western society, right? And one of the barriers that we sometimes come up against is from, say for example, say black men, but it can be other races as well, saying that Eastern European women from Russia, Ukraine, etc., do not want to date men of colour. Could be Asian men, whatever it is. We wanted to talk about it a little bit more in depth. We've done videos about it before, but more sort of, on the surface type discussion. But it's very interesting, right? What's happening at the moment, because of course there's this whole passport bros, which is happening at the moment. Just Google it, you'll see it's basically black men that's saying that they do not want to date women from the West, which is not so much a race, but more a Western type mentality, right? So men are going to other countries to look for better options when it comes to dating, look for more traditional women that want to have families, women that are going to respect masculine and feminine roles in that relationship, okay? So let's talk about this, okay? So it's a touchy subject, and
it's very
and most matchmakers in this space, they won't touch us with a 10-foot bar.
And also, like it's kind of vulnerable topic, because like you try to be on edge of not saying something or saying, but I think that we come up with a very good points that make that clear it up and explain it all and show not just our vision, but just the vision of not the majority, but the vision of how it is, through our observation, through the years of work and seeing what it is now. So we're gonna discuss it, how it used to be, how it is now, and I think that we have a pretty clear vision of how it will be in the future.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's always going to be a bit fuzzy, but I think before we start, I think it'd be fair to define what racism is, because I think that word is like, especially in the West with the lefties, the word is thrown about so, pretty much anyone is racist, right? I don't like Chinese food. Oh, you must be racist. It's just garbage, okay? So we want to try and get away from some of that and try to keep it a little bit real. So I looked up here on, I think it was Oxford Dictionary, I can't remember, definition of racism. Now, there's going to be, no matter what dictionary you look at, there's going to be different versions. But here's one here which I think encompasses what most of us believe racism is. Okay. A belief or doctrine that inherent differences among the various human racial groups determine cultural or individual achievement, usually involving the idea that one's own race is superior and has the right to dominate others, or that a particular racial group is inferior to others. All right? So when people talk about, Eastern European women don't want to date black men, this is kind of the narrative that it's sort of pushed. It's because they believe that they're better. Because what else could it be, right? Okay. So let's continue with that. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's have a look at the next point, which is culture and traditions, right? So, and this could also fall into, I guess, preferences as well. So why would a white Western man want to date into another culture, right? Is it because, we'll get to this part in a minute, but is it because of appearance, or is it because of culture and tradition? So a lot of men want to date women from Eastern Europe because of tradition, right? I'm not talking about, types of food or types of, dancing.
Actually, usually don't like the Ukrainian food.
No, I don't particularly do like Ukrainian food, but
Guys,
so why?
Disagreeing with you.
But when it comes to, say, a relationship, because if they're looking for a relationship, and they're using, or they have the mentality of looking for something that's traditional, you have to correlate the two together, right? So they're looking for a traditional relationship. So what is their definition of a traditional relationship? It's defined many different ways, but most men define a traditional relationship where there are boundaries around masculine and feminine roles, right? So woman doesn't pursue masculine roles, the man doesn't necessarily pursue feminine roles, and those work together. they're both equal, but they both have different roles and they work together. Okay, so if you were going to another culture because another race, we'll say, because you're looking for traditional values or values that you align with, I don't think that it is racist, right? There's nothing racist about that, right? And so
it's your preference. It's what you.
That's a preference, right? So that's more of like a value preference. Then there's the preference of how they look. Well, if you like hot, thin, blonde women, Eastern Europe is the place to go. If you like Asian-looking women that are thin, that are friendly, smiley, then maybe Philippines or China or Thailand, Southeast Asia, something like that, right? And you do not want, if you have those preferences, then you will not want to date in your own country, regardless. You're not interested in it all. Does it make it racist for your own country? I would not want to date women from UK or Australia. I'm born in the UK, but I would not date women from UK. I'm not interested in it, but that's because of the traditions and the values or lack thereof.
Or what you're looking for at the moment.
Yeah, and so it doesn't mean that I am racist. It's just my preference in terms of a relationship going forward. So if anybody was to say to me, you're racist towards Australians, I would think that's absolutely ridiculous. Or if I was racist towards people from UK, even though I'm from there, absolutely ridiculous, right?
But for me, it's like a more racist thing. Like we will go further and discuss like what it is that people maybe not particularly want to date like the same race as they. But in general, like I think that like if, for example, like you walk on the street and like the Asian person or like different race from yours asking you for help or or like somebody in trouble or you don't want to be friends with, that is like I think that is racist, right? Like when you try to avoid
so there's kind of like this I don't know if it's a famous meme or some video or whatever, like kids are not born racist. When you're born, like if you were born a white kid and a black kid and you grew up together and you thought you were brothers, you would not have any prejudice, right? So the next one is that I want to talk about is prejudice, right? So the only reason that you would not want to help or walk on the same side of the street or date a particular race, whether it was black, whether it was white, whether it was Asian, whatever, it doesn't matter, is because there is some prejudice that's been instilled in your mind. Now that prejudice could be from anywhere, and everybody has some form of prejudice to some race, right? Based on some experience that you had there, right? Maybe you understand that race is, from what you know, your experience, I'm not saying as a whole, but from what you know, is very violent, or that they take a lot of drugs, or that they are, maybe it's like a particular race of women, you may think that all those women from that country are narcissistic, right? So that's the prejudice that grows, right? And I think that prejudice is I think it's instilled in us through evolution to make us understand what to avoid, right? Probably the same as like if you touch a tree that has spikes on it, you'll understand, stop touching that tree, it's going to really hurt your hand, right? So, or touching fire or something like that. So prejudice, for some reason, I don't know what other word to call that, you will learn, we're learned beings, right? So we have to understand that a particular race is going to inhibit a particular type of behavior, right? So if you lived in one country, let's just say all the Chinese people that you knew were part of a triad gang and they sell drugs and they beat people up and they do bad things. But if you lived in China, Chinese people are just normal Chinese people, right? So there's a prejudice that's been instilled in people, right? So maybe so going into the next point, so maybe there's a prejudice that's been instilled, say in Ukrainian women, for example, or Russian women, where they do not want to date certain cultures. Maybe it's black, maybe it's Asian, whatever, it doesn't matter. But that's been instilled in them, right?
I can give a simple example that is maybe not very not very nice, but like about Turkish guys, for example.
Okay.
So like, for example, in Ukraine, when I go, in Ukraine, because for example, Odessa is just like 1 hour flight to Istanbul or a bit longer, but it's very close. Like a lot of Turkish people are coming to Odessa, and there's a lot of Turkish men, of course, Turkish women are staying at home, but Turkish men coming. There's a lot of Turkish restaurants, Turkish streets, Turkish everything. And for some reason, honestly, I can't explain that. I've been many times in Istanbul. I've been on resort in Turkey because it's Ukrainians always go. I can't understand. It's like it's like people who've been growing in a different like worlds. So people who are traveling to Ukraine, for example, to Odessa, I'm saying that some restaurants don't even want to let them in because they sitting and they really treating girls really bad. And when you go to Turkey, you go to Istanbul, of course, you don't talk about like market where you go and like everybody like buy from me. But if you talk about business mind, you know, about the shopping malls and everything, guys are very polite, very intelligent, very serious, very family oriented. So of course, if you never been in Istanbul, like and somebody say like to a Ukrainian girl, Turkish man, like she would never want to date him, she would never want to talk to him, and she would try to avoid him by going on a different street. You know?
Prejudice.
Yeah. So rather than and yes, it's the experience that they've got. But Stryker is right. I think that the next point that he wanted to say is like it can be by Turkish people like setting up these like views on them, or somebody is planting that seed in your head, like from a childhood maybe, that you start thinking of these people not by your own opinion but by somebody's.
But yeah, Luba's point there on Turkish guys. Like, I don't know anything about Turkish guys at all. But when
You've been called Amur.
I've been, and that was actually a little bit of a problem. People would think that I was Turkish, and I would also be, I guess, put into that same pigeonhole as like, oh, Turkish, and I'd say, no, actually, I'm from UK or from New Zealand, and then it would change, right? So I've experienced that myself firsthand, especially in Odessa. Odessa is like the Las Vegas of Eastern Europe. So guys with money go there, and they just go nuts. Like, you'd see them in the clubs. I would be embarrassed being in the club with them. I didn't know them. I'm not Turkish, but they were just loud and they were just acted like absolute clowns. And so my prejudice also formed against them until I went to Turkey, and I went around and I hung out there. It was only for one day that I was there, and the people were really, very nice. The food was great. Everyone was cool. And then you learn a little bit afterwards about like they're very good at business. They're very good at networking. Like they're very smart people.
Medicine is very. But I want to say here, you said Las Vegas, but you know the thing is that for them, Odessa, for example, is super cheap. But like I was evident. No, when I was sitting, if I saw something, I mean evident. If I saw something when the crime was happening.
Oh, evidence.
Evidence. So I am, but there was no crime. So I was at the one restaurant with my girlfriends. We was like having lunch, and then Turkish guys tried to came in, and the administrator said that all the tables are reserved, and I'm like, reserved? Like it's like the full restaurant is empty. Yeah. And she said, no, everything is lunchtime, everything is booked. And I say, and I knew this administrator said, like, what's happening? Like, why is that? And she said, oh no, like they're horrible. Like they're coming. It's like 10 of them. They got only like one pot of tea, and they sit there and they embarrass all the girls that are coming. They're like flirting with the girls who even coming with the boyfriend. So it's horrible. You know, that is the example that we've experienced itself.
Okay,
so sorry, like the good Turkish guys. Sorry, but your brothers are unfortunately acting very different. And even I know that some Turkish guys, to be honest, like they say that I know that we don't have a good reputation.
Yeah. So I guess that's more of like social pressure, right, on a particular race. But you know, if that's how it's presented to a particular person, that's the view that they're going to have, and it's very difficult to change that. It's very difficult for us not to have prejudice against something, and that's just the way that it is. So there's also somebody may not have somebody may not be racist, but there is social pressure. Maybe it's through like whatever community that they're in, or maybe even their family as well, where they are saying, you know, this person, like, no, it's not a real life experience, but they're telling you that, like, no, like, you know, let's roll back to say Soviet times, right? I dated a woman when I was in Ukraine, and she was telling me that her parents, they lived in a small village where she grew up. They never saw a black person in real life until 2012, right? So can you imagine that? They would have seen on TV, but in real life, in the village or something like that, a black person came, and so that for them it's like it's something new. It's like, wow, look, a black person, you know. So the racism or the unknowing or being scared or afraid is through proxy, right? So it comes through, say, the parents who are like from Soviet times. And think about Soviet times. Everything was cut off from the rest of the world. They had to manufacture everything: their plates, their socks, their shoes. Everything had to be manufactured there. There was no sales reps from China coming over trying to sell products. There was nobody.
And it was Iron Curtain, right?
Curtain, like you literally couldn't travel. It was I'd say it would be virtually impossible for just a normal person. And so it wasn't like people were thinking, where should I go on vacation? Well, I can go to Thailand, I can go to Bali, I can go to Miami, I can go to Hawaii, I can go to the Soviet Union. It wasn't happening, right? So the fact that it was cut off shielded from the rest of the world, which was starting to become like a multiracial world, right? Cultures and communities that were starting to integrate, people were starting to have children that were biracial and all that sort of stuff. That wasn't happening there for so long, right? For so long. So for them, it was they didn't understand it, and what you don't understand, you usually don't like, right? You just don't like it.
Can I say one story quickly? My grandfather in Soviet Union, it was like a huge, it was like a flow of like this. If there is a big holiday, everybody go to the street with the flags, and it's not the strike, but it's like they walking and they have some flowers and stuff. And there was like some I don't know this. It's like some people, like black people, came, either some sportsmen or something, they came, and my grandfather, he was like a leader at the factory, and so they was having a speech, and then they have like a dinner together or something, and the translator is saying like, this black guy told my grandfather, and he say, you Slavic people are such a good people, like such a good, but you're so ugly. It was like, so like it just came to, I forgot about this story, but my grandfather was looking at him, and he was like shocked, and this guy, like, he was a little bit drunk. It's like, we think that you're such a good people, so kind, but you're so ugly. Not to my grandfather, like in general. And we were like, and I mean, not we, he was like very surprised by that, and all over the years, like, this story was coming through my family. But Stryker is right, a lot of people never saw them. And of course, like, if I would, for example, like, bring a guy from a different race to my parents, they probably, like, my dad probably will do something either with me, with him.
Well, because there's that last generation left, right, which is like your parents.
Yes.
That's left, right? That's from the Soviet times, and when the Iron Curtain fell, they then were like introduced to this new scary world, I guess, a little bit, where it was like, there's people from different races, you can go anywhere. You can literally kind of go anywhere, like with a little
nowadays.
Yeah. Well, when it sort of happened, it was like it fell and the world became free. But just because like you can see out there doesn't necessarily mean you understand what it is that you can see, right? So if you've been confined to this one box, and this is all you don't realize what's out there.
Yeah.
It opens and it's like, I don't understand this. I don't like. These people have different skin color. Why they're like here, like. They just don't get it. I'm sure they had TV, but the TV in the Soviet Union was controlled. You weren't watching. There was no Netflix. Like, it was censored. You just saw stuff from USSR. So.
I will say this, like, people in Ukraine are in general very conservative. Even if, like, I tell my mom, like, Mom, you should try something, and she like, oh no, this is definitely not good, and we have a joke in my family about the banya, about sauna. And like for many years, like, I adore going to banya, like, with this like when you like, it's so nice, like it's
basically a hot room, hot room.
Yeah, it's like sauna, but you just like, they use like this
hot leaves.
Yeah. And my mom was always against so much that I can't even, she was getting angry when I was talking about this, until like one day, who been in Odessa and been in ArcSpa, and I said, like, Mom, you just shut up and I take you there, like, and you go. Because in her mind, Beth's house was a place where she was taken as a child on Saturday, because they didn't have a hot water at home. And so everybody should be naked there, all the women separate from the men. And like, she was so embarrassed as a young girl to go there. That's why for her, when somebody was saying sauna, it was like, oh my God, no, like, I don't want to remember these memories from my childhood whenever it was not comfortable to be there. And now I take her to a new place, modern one, that is clean and nice. And she like, wow. And she was absolutely amazed, and I end up giving her a certificate to go there more often. So they're pretty conservative, and they're conservative because in Soviet Union there was just that amount of things that were available. That is what I'm trying to explain. Like, they didn't know the variety. There was not like 50 types of bread. Like, come to the shop here, it's like, it's insane, like, amount of types of bread. Like, it seems like water and wheat, like, what can it be? Or different drinks or different beer. It was one beer, maybe two. It was one milk. It was one this, and that's all. Of course, they don't know anything. And I think that what strikers say about the last generation, I think the reason for that is, for example, even like because of war, it sounds horrible, but even because of war, our children now, they are coming to all over the world, and they're coming to a very, very different schools and very different classes and very different races, like they meet there. And they will become friends with them, I know for sure. Like kids, as you say, kids are not born as races, and because they already in this country, they're strangers, they are foreigners, and they have to adjust to the culture. So I don't think that they're going to be that significant difference like with this generation that is coming up. And even my generation, I think, is more flexible and more open to that, because they're more looking for other traits. You know, they're not looking just for white or black or Asian or Indian. They're looking for, you know, for personal qualities that are lacking, you know, like can be
left. It basically, it's I think the racism that may stem from, say, Eastern European women towards, say, black men, Asian men, or something like that. If not all women are like that, but if there is a prejudice there, and they had a strong, and that prejudice was strong, a strong value in their family, right? I think it is, a lot of it is going to be that if their parents are still alive, even if she doesn't mind dating a black man, how do I introduce a black man into the family? Because my parents have always been in this small box, the small USSR box, where they, like, to explain it to them, it's like explaining, you know, like brain surgery to a child.
It depends on the age and everything, because sometimes they may say, oh, whatever, if you are happy with this man, just go. But
it depends on
the family.
It depends on the family.
But I think that the reason that we started doing this video is just because we don't want guys to get offended, like from all races. We don't want them to get offended and don't understand why it's more difficult, you know, to match.
It's a difficult topic, and people are quite fast to throw out the racism flag and say that this person is racist. But at the end of the day, look, like if a black guy comes to us, books a coach call and says, like, I want to find a Slavic woman, like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a personal preference based on personal appearance of what she looks like, how beautiful she is, white skin, blue eyes, whatever. Her goals, her values, or maybe her goals as well. That's a personal preference, right? So, I mean, the same could be thrown back and say, well, why don't you want to date a woman from UK, or a Chinese woman, or a black woman, or anything like that? It doesn't mean that the person is racist. They have personal preferences that they think is part of their dating strategy that's going to work for them for the long term. You know, but I'll say this now, like, the whole... I know that this isn't so common in, like, Southeast Asia, Colombia and stuff, countries like that. It's only in Soviet Union because it was so closed off. But when I was living in Ukraine, I lived very close to a university, and I was going to that university for a short period of time to learn Russian. And while I was there, I said, like, how do, like, all of these students learn Russian so fast? And the students were
Nigeria, India.
they would go there first to learn Russian for 8 months, I think she said. And then they would go and learn...
it was Polytechnical University, so they were coming to technical...
Yeah, something like that anyway. But they were Nigerian, they're from Pakistan, from India, from Africa. And the reason... And she said to me that the reason that they learn it really fast is because as soon as they come here, they get into a relationship. And that's how they can just continually speak this... You know, they've got no other option. They don't know English. They just know Nigerian and this language here. And so what you're saying is that, like, in the university... They're all getting into these relationships, like Ukrainian women, guys from Nigeria. So there's going to be a lot of biracial children. Well, there would have been. I don't know what's happening in the future.
But in university, yes, you know, and it was more acceptable. But at schools, like, children don't come like from different races.
You're right in the middle. Like, you are literally right in the middle of, like, when you were too young to know better, and now old enough to know, too young to not know enough. Now old enough to know better. Like, you're the generation where the switch has been pushed.
You know, I will quickly say one story. Like, from this Polytechnical, I got to know one guy from Nigeria, and it was interesting because one time I was when I have my little agency period of time when I was working for myself with the Westerners. So we stopped the car and he stopped, and so for maybe 2 or 3 years he was working as my driver, not my driver, for my clients, because he speaks English. He was a black guy. Guys felt very, like, nice that, you know, the guy from that this guy was picking them up. And then he was extremely nice guy, extremely nice. And I asked him, I said, did you meet any girl? Like, are you dating somebody? And he said, no. And it was also very cute. He said, at home I have a bride, like, you know, I'm like, she's the most beautiful, like I will finish university and I go back there. And I saw recently, like, they have 5 children already, 5. like with this woman. You know, I exactly like what you said. It is not about races. It's about preferences.
Yeah, it's preferences. Yeah,
so
exactly.
his preference, like he was one of the nicest guy, I'm sure, in a group. Like he was super supportive, he was very nice, very responsible, everything about him. And if there would be a girl with whom he will become friends and like they will become like start dating, but he didn't want his preference. He say, no, like you're nice people, but I want to go back home. Like there's my wife is waiting. It was not wife, it was basically his friend from school, you know, that they grow together because he was pretty young. So that is a preference question, and what you're looking for, you need to go and try to achieve.
Just some food for thought before you start saying this person is racist because they won't date me, or that person, etc., is not racist. But that's the video for today anyway. I'll catch you guys in the next one.